Picked up again by McDavid, straight up the middle, McDavid in, scores! What a goal! Tony Subban scores! Crosby scores! Sidney Crosby, the golden goal! He did it! The greatest goal scorer in National Hockey League history is Wayne Gretzky! And Hemsky's loose! Hemsky, he scores! Can you believe what we just saw? In comes Tavares, walks in, Reed scores! Tavares again! Canada's back in it! 3, 2, 1! Series over!
Hello, and welcome back to the second episode of the One Timers Hockey Podcast. Jules, how are we doing today?
We're doing good. Hockey's back. I'm a happy camper. How about you, bud?
I can't complain at all. The Habs, that might be the first time we've ever won 2 games on a Western road trip, taking care of Edmonton in easy fashion. So all smiles over here. What do we got in the docket for this episode?
So we're going to start with our division playoff predictions. And I want to hear your predictions for first the North Division.
North Division, in my mind, is definitely the hardest division. As we've seen from the starting games, looks like everyone's going to beat everyone throughout this. At the start, Ottawa's not even in the conversation, and they come out and look really good in the first game. So I think it's interesting. For me, I'm going to start off the division winner. I have it at Calgary, Toronto, Montreal, and then I have Winnipeg in the 4 spot. Coming in beforehand, I liked Vancouver. I don't really love what I'm seeing from them. Obviously, it's very early, but I think Winnipeg, I think they're gonna do well. I think they get in that 4 spot.
Yeah, I want to argue with you here, but I actually have the same 4, but in a different order. I got Leafs, Flames, Canadiens, Jets. And my big one is at the start of the year, I thought Edmonton. I really did think that they were going to do it, but I watched them over the last few games, and the goaltending, like with Smith gone and Koskinen's playing every game, they just don't look good when McDavid and Draisaitl aren't on the ice. I actually thought Kyle Turris has been fine, but they took a step back. And then Vancouver, Elias Pettersson has 1 point in 3 or 4 games now. It's obviously he's not a guy you worry about. He'll find his game, but when he's not producing, they're not going to win. So I got to go with those other 4. I'm happy with them. I think they all have pretty solid goaltending, minus maybe the Leafs are the biggest question with that, but they probably have the best team other than that on paper. So those are my teams for that. Now I got to ask you the Central Division. Who you got?
Yeah, Central Division, I think we all know who's going to win that one. They get the Tampa Bay Lightning.
The Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, exactly. They we were just talking before we got on the air how the Dallas Stars haven't played a game yet and are ahead of the Blackhawks in the standings. And I don't know if that changes because we kind of went all over on the Red Wings the last episode, and they proved us wrong in the win in Columbus. I think Chicago's going to get hit with the next little bit of hate in that Central Division from us. But moving forward, we get Tampa at 1, Carolina at 2. I'm going to put Nashville at 3, and I got Dallas at 4 here without Columbus in it. I was heavy on Columbus. I really, really liked what they were doing, and I kind of hope they prove me wrong because I love Tortorella, and I just like watching them play in the playoffs. But at the same time, if they don't figure out this Dubois stuff, I think it's just going to eat away at the locker room because I don't think he wants to be. He's already said he doesn't want to be there. You've kind of shortened the bench, not having him on the ice for a while in that second game. I don't know what the reasoning when that was. Then you have Domi, who sat the last 7 minutes of that game in Detroit. So I just think they really have a lot to figure out. And with this shortened season, if it takes you 20 games, you might be out of the hunt. So that's what it is. Tampa, Carolina, Nashville, Dallas for me.
I like those picks, but we can finally differ here. I got Tampa and the Hurricanes 1 and 2. like we said last episode, we can't see Tampa losing to anybody really, like, or losing that spot at first. I think they're dominant. I think the Hurricanes are a great young team. I think they're a clear second, in my opinion. I think there's a big drop off after 1 and 2 there for me. My third, I still have Columbus. I have Columbus at 3, and I'm gonna tell you why. So Pierre-Luc Dubois might be having a controversy and everything right now, but I think they revisit everything in the summer. I don't think there's a rush to get rid of him, and I think if they're not going to get rid of him unless they're getting something strong back. I believe in Jarmo Kekalainen. I believe in their GM. I think he's made some pretty decent moves. I think if they're trading him, they're going to get back pieces. Plus, when I look at them, like you had Nashville there, UC Saros and Pekka Rinne have not played well. And I look at Columbus and their good defensive system with Tortorella, and I say, okay, Korpisalo and Merzlikins can get a team to the playoffs. If they're splitting over 56 games, I just see them making it. And my fourth team, we haven't seen them yet, but the Dallas Stars. You go to the Cup final, you got to put some faith in that. And now, even with the extra break, I know they're going to be playing more games in a shortened period of time, but my questions for them was that they had so many guys hurt, and now all these guys who are hurt aren't missing games because they're not playing. So at a certain point, I'm like, okay, that actually might have helped them a bit. I know it does hurt in a sense, but it could have helped them too. So they slide in that fourth spot for me.
Yeah, and like I said on the Columbus side, I hope they prove me wrong, and I really do hope they figure it out. I just I had to make the hard decision, and I'm leaving them out where it stands right now.
Yeah, I like it. We're gonna go to the East now, and I think I'm gonna go first here. So I'm a big Flyers fan, and I had picked them to win the division, and they went out and beat Pittsburgh twice, and then they somehow forgot how to play hockey against the Buffalo Sabres there. So they actually slid out of the first position for me now. I have the New York Islanders at 1. I have the Philadelphia Flyers at 2, the Washington Capitals at 3, and the Boston Bruins at 4. I think the Islanders, obviously, we saw them go to the conference final last year, gave Tampa the biggest push out of anybody, I think. And they're a good team. They're great defensively. Barzal proved that he could sign a contract and the next day be still amazing. So he's fantastic. The Flyers, I still think they're just so deep in Carter Hart. I can't see them not making the playoffs or doing well. Washington, Ovi can score. They're a great team. I had questions about Samsonov, but he's come in and he looked good. So, they're in there for me. And Boston, they ran away with the league last year. They're going to make the playoffs. I can't see a way they don't. Like, I'm sorry to Pittsburgh and the Rangers and Buffalo and New Jersey, but those last two I didn't think were going to be very strong. But I mean, Pittsburgh, it's hard to see them slip out, but they didn't look good against the Flyers, and usually they're the team that always is able to beat the Flyers. So when they're losing those games, that's a sign of concern for me.
Yeah, and those are a couple good points. We have a couple differences on this one. I'm going to start off with the Flyers at 1. You're spoken like a true Flyers fan in that one there, saying one bad game gonna take them right out of the top spot. I still think they're fine there. That happens. That's Detroit. Detroit wins. Chicago's gonna win a game this year. Tampa's gonna lose a game. Teams lose games. It looked awful. It was a terrible game by the Flyers, but it's nothing to lose your mind about. I think that their scoring is gonna let them be able to come first. The Islanders, I have it second, just defensively fantastic. The Capitals, I have at 3. I think they're going to be the highest scoring team by far, and that's only the reason. The Samsonov issues, I think, are going to kind of minimize a little bit because they're going to be able to score a lot of goals, I believe. And I'm going to put the Rangers at 4. I'm going to take the Boston Bruins out. I don't think Pittsburgh was ever really in the conversation for me, but and I don't really need to explain Buffalo. I'd love to see Buffalo surprise, but no. The New York Rangers are going in over the Boston Bruins for one reason and one reason only. I don't love how Boston has started offensively, and I think they will find it, but without Pasternak in right now, and who knows when he's going to get back and healthy. I haven't heard any exact timeline yet, if you have, but I know it's only 3 games in and we don't need to stress, but there's 2 teams. There was a tweet sent to me today from by Dmitry Filipovich. And he said there's 2 teams in the NHL right now without an even strength goal. All right, the Boston Bruins and the Dallas Stars. Dallas Stars haven't played a game yet. Boston Bruins have played 3 games, and 2 of those games being against the New Jersey Devils. So again, it's very early, but they haven't really changed their team much. So I think Pasternak's a huge piece of that offense, and I don't think they get it going in that division.
Yeah, I gotta disagree with you on the Bruins there. Like I watched the game against New Jersey the other day. Obviously, you don't want them being in close games against New Jersey. They're much better team. They should beat them. But I think they put up 46 shots on New Jersey in the first game, and Mackenzie Blackwood stood on his head. So I'm not gonna down the whole offense because one hot goalie in one game. To go back to the Flyers, yeah, the one game brings them down for me, and that is a true Flyers fan thing. But my concern goes from back in the bubble where I thought they just did not play Flyers hockey whatsoever against Montreal at all, and then against the Islanders, and that's why they lost. And they played the same way they played against Montreal when they played the Sabres the other night. So I have that lingering fear if they play like that, they're going to be toast. But to move to the West, give me your 4.
So I think if we have different top 3 in this, we might have to just can the podcast right now, because I'm pretty sure those are going to be set in stone. Maybe not the order, but the teams. I'm going to put Vegas at 1. They're not because of the start, not because of anything. I really think it's a toss up between Vegas and the Avs. I just think Vegas are going to end up in the regular season doing it, and the Avs will beat them in the playoffs. The Avs at 2, the Blues at 3, and that 4 spot to me might come down to the 56th game in my mind between the Minnesota Wild and the San Jose Sharks. Because I think, as we said before, if the first line on Minnesota doesn't score, they don't win. They win 2 overtime games. The first line, right? Kaprizov with 3 points in the first game, overtime assist in the second overtime win. The Wild, and then they go and play the Ducks. They don't have any goals. They get shut out because obviously if no one on your team scores, you're going to get shut out. But their secondary scoring isn't there at all. So that's a big fear of mine. The Sharks, it's just seeing how much they can score, I think, because I think Martin Jones is a great goalie, but they're still not a good defensive team at all. So if they can score big numbers in a game, they're a good matchup with Minnesota, because if they can outscore Minnesota, right, outscore that top line, they're going to win every one of those games. So that's why I think the Sharks are going to end up sliding in that spot. Final answer.
All right. Well, we have the same top 3, different order though. I go Avs at 1. I said it before the season. I'll say it now. I didn't think obviously they lost their first game against St. Louis, but they're the best team on paper other than the Tampa Bay Lightning in the league. I think they're fantastic. I have the Golden Knights at 2, and they're behind the Avs, obviously, because of how highly I think of the Avs, but also the center depth is not there for me in Vegas. Their second line center is Chandler Stevenson. I don't think a lot about him. I think he's a good player. Don't get me wrong. I don't want to harp on the guy, but I just don't think he's a second line center in the NHL. I think William Karlsson is not a definitive star first line center either. So of your top 3 centers, Cody Glass being your number 3, he's probably the one that fits the most at the position that he's in. And I just think that having those 3 centers, I can't see you win the division, no matter how good you are on D and no matter who you have in the net. I have the Blues at 3. I think that's pretty obvious. They're a great team. I think that even honestly, they could push for second or even first in that division. It would not surprise me, but I see them falling at 3. And my 4th, I had the LA Kings before the season, and then I watched the LA Kings play, and I do not have the LA Kings anymore. I really thought that if like Turcotte and Byfield and a couple other guys were stepping in the lineup, that maybe they could have like a youth movement, kind of like, you see a lot of buzz around Ottawa right now. Like guys are like the young guys are in there. I thought that they could help that with LA, but obviously Byfield's not ready and Turcotte's not there. So I have Minnesota. I thought Kaprizov played fantastic. I like the way they played. As far as San Jose, I actually really thought Erik Karlsson looked a lot better when I was watching them, but I still don't trust the team's depth in order to be good over a full 56 game season. So my thought process on that is that Erik Karlsson logged 32 minutes in the first game. I think he's still leading the league in average ice time with over 29 minutes a game. In a short season, he's not going to be able to play that kind of minutes on games where he has 3 games in 4 nights. So when all of a sudden, when he's off the ice, they're going to struggle. I don't think they make the playoffs.
Fair. I mean, it's going to come down to that. We're going to keep those written down. Those answers are in stone, and we'll come back to them in a few months and see who ends up being right.
Sounds good. I think I'm pretty confident in my choices here, but we'll see.
We'll have to. I was gonna say we'll have to put a little skin on the line. Put something on the line there, and we'll come up with that at a later date. Maybe some of the listeners can throw some comments in and come up with a wager for us.
Sounds good to me. Everybody should bet on me because I'm gonna win. And also, I want to hit Jakob Voracek's press conference. I wanted to know your thoughts. I wanted to hear. I thought it was fantastic as a Flyers fan, but what are you thinking?
I love it. And I think I was listening, actually. I got to give credit to where I heard it. 31 Thoughts, Elliot Friedman on 31 Thoughts. And they were talking about it. And what he said was that happens a lot as reporters, but when you're face to face, it doesn't happen on air. It doesn't happen live. And I think that's what I love the most about it, because he didn't, like, the reporter had no chance. Mike, forget his last name, but starts with an S, I think, but he had no chance to reply, because once you shut him down, like, he can't continue that conversation. So like, that would never happen next year or the years after. That won't happen because you just won't have that soundbite. It won't be just live there for you. And I liked what he did. I think, I'm sure this has happened in the past. Voracek is not at his happiest, I wouldn't say, and probably hasn't been the past couple years. So he's got a guy with a little chip on his shoulder. Everyone's upset. This guy did something to frustrate him, clearly, and he's within his right to just say, you know what, give him a little heat, right? If you can't, again, from 31 Thoughts, but if you can't give it, right, you got to be able to. If you can give it, you got to be able to take it. So.
Yeah, see, I have the exact same thought on that. I think it was fantastic. I think that players don't often get the chance to, or they don't fight back against a reporter that's really on them. And like you said, Voracek has taken a lot of criticism over the last few years, but he's a great player through and through. And I think this was just kind of a bit of a breaking point, because he's been harped on by the Flyers writers, and especially that guy. From what I understand, he wrote basically a few pieces that were essentially just, team's losing, it's Jakob Voracek, we got to trade him and Van Riemsdyk. But I thought the NHL's handling of the situation was a joke. That's my opinion. I think that the NHL is a league that struggles with having the players be themselves. Like the NBA has storylines because they have the players act like themselves. They are not just, oh, I'm super professional and this and that. And Voracek showed his frustration. He showed a little bit about himself, and then the NHL comes out and says Commissioner Bill Daley is going to call him the next day and talk to him about his language in the press conference, and didn't comment on whether he got fined or not, which, if you're not going to comment if he got fined or not, chances are he gave him some kind of fine, and the Flyers will pay that. They don't care. They'll happily pay that. But at the same time, it's like, you want your players to show themselves more. And this is, any attention is good attention for the most part, I think. And I don't think he really said anything that was too terrible. He's a hockey player. Do you know what they say to each other on the ice? Like, he called the guy a weasel, and I thought it was objectively pretty funny. And the fact that the NHL trying to come down on him and stuff like that, it encourages players to not be themselves. And I think it was just a terrible handling of the whole situation.
Yeah, and I mean, this happens in every league. It's really, like you said, really going on in the NBA right now, where they want to the league wants to get a handle on it by making everything just robotic. But at the same time, when people give robotic answers, get pucks deep, get pucks out, move our feet, like that's the only answer, then people say, oh, well, like it's boring. We need more spark. So you can't have it both ways. I agree. The league, I still understand against the swearing part. I think dropped an F-bomb, but I don't think it's anything big to shake your head at. Should just be don't do that. And I think they might be more worried about this inciting more people to step out and attack reporters, which I think is absolutely absurd. I'm not on the side of the NHL here. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate a little bit.
Yeah, he's gonna be Marshawn Lynch at the next interview. He's just gonna be like, "I'm just here so I don't get fined." Our next topic is the waiver situation. So, especially Anton Forsberg getting picked up. I think it's twice in the same week, or
yeah. So this guy, he's definitely getting his airfare worth. He's going to be on that frequent flyers very soon. Started in Edmonton, gets picked up by Carolina. Then just as he gets picked up by Carolina, gets then put back on the waiver wire and sent out to Winnipeg. So I understand this year is very tough, and I think this is going to happen again. It might happen a lot. Goalies are going to move, especially goalies. Players are going to move because throughout this whole season, it's not like just coming into playoffs or just coming into crunch time. This whole season is going to be about staying on that cap and keeping guys in the lineup. So you're going to have often times where you're moving guys from top to bottom. And I think this is going to be a weekly occurrence on who gets moved. Not always going to be big names, but these guys' lives are changing. I think it's just interesting seeing guys move all around North America, just bounce around team to team.
yeah, I think coming in, everybody kind of had their three. Like, obviously, some guys would like to claim somebody off waivers to improve, but most teams had their three. And then Mike Smith goes down in Edmonton, so they're starting to try and claim guys. And Crawford retires in New Jersey, so they're trying to claim guys. And all of a sudden, teams start claiming goalies, and then everybody starts claiming each other's goalies because now, like, okay, we lost a guy, we need a guy for the NHL, so they start grabbing guys, and then those guys lose their third string, so they're grabbing other teams' third strings, and they just started a effect, and it was like a butterfly effect that kept going down, and musical chairs or whatever for goaltending in the NHL and the AHL. I really thought it was interesting. I love that you're saying that, don't, like, they might as well not pack their bags yet, see where they end up at the end of the week. If you're in Canada, hang out for a couple days before you go in quarantine in the States, because you might end up back in Canada in less than a week. My other waiver thing I want to talk about was Jason Spezza. Now, for those who don't know, Jason Spezza is a longtime NHLer, fantastic player, and he was placed on waivers by the Toronto Maple Leafs. And essentially, his agent came out and said, if another team claims him, he's just going to retire. He's just going to leave the game of hockey behind because he doesn't want to leave Toronto. So my thoughts on this was that it's a joke. Like, I don't care. A player should not be able to say that. You might as well just claim him anyway, call him out on the bluff. If he wants to keep playing hockey, then, you claim him, and that's how the league works, especially if you're a team in Canada. There's some teams that don't have the guys at center. Like, if you're Ottawa, he's a Ottawa Senators legend. I would just claim him and say, okay, well, I don't want him in my division, so other player retire, bro. Like, make a choice. You know what I mean? And
I don't want him winning 78% of faceoffs against me every night.
yeah, exactly. So if I was a team in the Canadian division, I would have just done it. I know it's like hockey's like a respectful sport, and it's like, oh, this guy has been in the league for a long time. We don't want to mess him. He threatened to retire, but like, that's not how waivers work. You can't just say, hey, I'm not going to come play for any other team if you pick me up on waivers, so just don't pick me up. Like, that's not how it works. Like, if you're putting Aaron Dell, who they put with them, and Aaron Dell didn't say, hey, I'm just going to retire if anybody claims me. Like, that's not how the NHL should work. I think I don't know what the NHL could do about the situation like that, but I don't agree with it.
I think there's like you said exactly. He's in a position where he deserves to say that. He should be allowed. He shouldn't be allowed. He has the right to say that, I think, just from his experience and his time. And it might be true. It's probably true. But at the same time, you can't just be having guys like the Toronto Maple Leafs have to get fined for this. It's not going to make an impact at all, right? It's going to be a slap on the wrist fine, but there has to be a fine because you can't drop a guy that's available and have him come out and say, no, I'm staying here no matter what. That defeats the whole purpose. If he wasn't a well-respected guy like Jason Spezza is around the league, I'd pick him up out of spite, right? I'd pick him up and just say, all right, like, congrats on your great career. Right? You're not going to come play for us. Congratulations. Like, you had a great job. Enjoy watching the game on the couch, right? Like, it's obviously that would never happen. I think it would be hilarious if it did. But yeah, like it's just not a cool move. I don't think it's respectable at all. If you're in a situation like that and you get put on waiver, like, you didn't hear Corey Perry saying that. Corey Perry didn't say that. So I understand that Spezza lives in Toronto, but at the end of the day, it's just part of the game. And I thought it was a wrong move.
Yeah. If I'm Winnipeg, I would just pick him up and say, hey, you're already in town. Might as well lace him up tonight. Let's play. Like, I just think it's ridiculous. I completely agree with you. On to our next topic. I want to talk about the Leafs in general. The tale of two teams. One night they're terrible, and the next night they're absolutely fantastic. So what's going on with that?
Yeah, and like we talked about on the first episode, they looked good in game one with Montreal. They obviously, it was first game, a little bit of jitters on both sides, but they looked overall like a great team. They come in the next night in Ottawa, and they made Ottawa, like, we had conversations. You have media guys now saying, are you going to put Ottawa in the playoffs? That's how bad Toronto was that night. And you had Morgan Riley at -4, I believe. You had and playing 23, 24 minutes. You just had nothing going right. And you had a young Ottawa team that really just made you look bad all over the ice. That being said, you come back 2 nights later and play Winnipeg and outshoot them. Don't remember the final shots, but it was a lot. The shots were in the second period were 22-6. Like, it was just an absolute. They walked all over them. Still, I believe, lucky to win that game. Winnipeg could have had a lot of chances to score, but overall, you were just absolutely two different teams. We went over the playoff rankings. We both have them on the high side, making the playoffs, if not winning the division. So I don't think either one of us are scared of it, but it's just uneasy, and you hate to see it as Leafs fans watching this. It's very frustrating to watch a team go from a high to a low. That's why, me personally, being a Montreal fan, I love it right now, because we're just riding that high. We're on the high and we're just going to ride it. We're going to ride it all the way. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, so the only point I'll put on the Leafs is that most people are talking about Frederick Anderson and Jack Campbell and everything in net. I don't think that's the biggest issue. I think it's just compete level. I think that, like you said, this in that Ottawa game, they just weren't there. Like, half the guys could have played with their suits on underneath. They wouldn't have got them wet. They just they didn't want to be there, and they thought they'd roll in and they just steamroll a bad Ottawa Senators team. And I know they played 2 games against them. The next night they did. They ran over Ottawa pretty well and stuff. But, and like you said, they beat Winnipeg pretty bad. And they're a good team. Like, they will do fine. But the thing is that roster could run the division if they wanted to. But the problem is compete level, and do they want to every night? And that's what always scares you about Toronto. That's why Leaf fans are always so upset, is because they know what they have. Like, they used to be bad and be like, okay, we have an awful team. Don't expect them to be good. Like, it's a fire sale. People are throwing jerseys in the ice. Now you have a fundamentally good roster. You have a good team. And then some nights they just say, hey, we're not going to play like that. That's even more frustrating, because you know what they can do and they just don't.
Yeah, it absolutely. It scares all the Leafs fans that have already booked their tickets up to Toronto for the parade. They've been booking it years and years. And I think they'll get there one of these years. We'll probably both be in the ground by then, but next 100 years or so, I think they'll win a cup. I just got to throw a little Leaf chirps in there right now, because might not be able to very long.
Yeah, next 100 years, that's a small timetable. You didn't want to give them an extra leeway, another 50 years on top of that, or anyways. I want to talk about one thing that I was looking at. We were watching the games this week. I want you to tell me one guy that since whatever it was, the bubble or the end of last season, that has taken a step back. And I mean a guy that you were watching and say like, okay, this guy either lost, like got out of shape or he looks hurt or something. He's lost a step since the last time you saw him play, or a guy who's gained a step. So give me one of each, a guy who's gained a step or a guy who's lost a step.
Okay, well we're early, and I think no matter who I say, unless it was someone on Anaheim or nobody in the bottom or someone on Chicago, if I'm gonna say someone lost a step, there's gonna be people to disagree with me. First name that comes to mind is gonna be just mentioned Morgan Riley. I still think I still think he's a great player. I'm not at all bashing his talent. I just think we're going to talk about how Toronto has been defensively as a whole the past couple years and everything. And he had a second intermission interview where he said, we really need to clamp down defensively. That was the game after being -4. So maybe he's turned it around, but if you're going to lead by example and you need to lead that decor in that team, you got to bring a little bit more to the table, right? I'm not talking about scoring goals. He has 1 point. Has that OT winner, but being -4 in that one game and just not really commanding defensively, still letting teams play a little bit tougher. Like I said, that Winnipeg game was better, so that might be premature, and the Leafs fans might really have my head because I might attack them a little too much so far, but yeah, that's my pick. My top player, this is a turnaround. This is like a surprising expectations. Not the top player in the league, I'm saying, but I've liked, and I thought it's very important, is Logan Couture for me. Played he's just shy of 20 minutes so far a night, coming off. He's the captain there now, and I think he's kind of, ever since they've lost Pavelski and Marlowe and now Joe, he's really the guy in there that was with them for a lot of the time, but that San Jose culture is dropped, and he needs to be the reason that they bring it back up. So like I got here, he's got 4 points. He had 3 points the other night, and I think he's looking better out there, and he's looking much more impactful. So that's why I put them in the playoffs. I think he has a bounce back year, and so far he's off to a great start.
Yeah. So before I give mine, I want to touch on yours a little bit. Yeah, I agree with you with Morgan Riley. I thought he played, like, obviously he scored an OT winner and he played well in the first game, but he looked like there was something missing. He looked a little sluggish. I wasn't sure of it. So I agree with that. I think it is with him, he's going to get points no matter what on that team, on that power play unit. Like, he is going to get numbers. And I think he's still a great D. I'm just with you. I'm not bashing the guy at all, but he just looked like he hasn't yet found his game this season. He might get there. He might not. You're touching on Logan Couture. I completely agree. I thought Logan Couture's been fantastic, but I also don't know how much of a step forward it's been for him, because for me, Logan Couture is always good when he's healthy. His problem is he wasn't healthy last year. Like, that was the big reason why San Jose fell apart, because like you said, they lost Thornton. They were losing Pavelski last year. They had lost him. And then when Couture went down with injury, he hurt his knee, their whole team crumbled, and that's why they fell apart. But when he's in the lineup, he is a fantastic center. So I completely agree that he's got to be that leader now. He's got to be their guy there. And if he's in there and he's healthy, I think he's a difference maker on that team for sure. And then any team in the NHL, he's a fantastic player. So my guys who lost a step and have gained a step, I was watching the Detroit Red Wings the other day, and I saw Anthony Mantha, and he looked like he had taken a massive step back. I'm not sure how many people actually watched Detroit Red Wings games last year to see how good Mantha was, but on that bad of a team, he had a career year. Like, he was good for them. He was scoring goals. He was driving the net. He was moving. And for anybody who doesn't know him, he is not the most proficient skater around. He's a big guy, power forward, can shoot, but he looked slow when I was watching him in the couple games I got to see him. He did not look like himself. And I was sitting there, I was like, maybe it's just me. I'm losing my mind. And all of a sudden the commentators go on and they say, is Anthony Mantha injured? he's looking not right out there. He's not moving right. And I'm like, maybe he is injured because there was something going on. There was something wrong there, and he did not look good. But to go to my guy who's taking a step forward is Jack Hughes. Oh my God. I was the biggest, I don't know, a critic of him last year. I thought he wasn't anywhere near ready for the NHL. I know it's hard to send first overall picks back to junior or college or anything, but he was just too small, too thin. He got pushed. He lost probably 95% of his puck battles last year. He just couldn't do it. And I watched him against the Bruins, and he looked like a different player. It was night and day. He's stronger. I don't think he's particularly like big enough to win a crazy amount of puck battles, but he just looked more comfortable with the puck, skating up the ice. I think not prime for a big year, but he's going to have a much better season than he did last year. I think over 82 last year, I think he had 21 points. He's definitely going to eclipse that in a 56 game season this year. I have no doubt on that. I think the way I saw him the other day, he could pass 35, honestly, past 35 points. Like, he looked good, and I think he's taken a huge step.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I think he did look good in those games, and I think it's important for him to be allowed to be a little more comfortable, or to be more comfortable on that top unit, both power play and even strength. Just being able to move. I think, like you mentioned, he put on, I didn't remember the exact number, but near 20 pounds of muscle, just getting bigger and stronger, 15 to 20 pounds. So the guy was young, right? We were always quick to jump on the young guys and say, why are you not at the top right now? Because when a guy like McDavid came in, he was at the top right away, or pretty close. So sometimes it takes a year or two for these guys. And yeah, I agree with that. He's coming in. I think that's a pretty good pick. I'm gonna throw one in here. We're gonna do a little new segment on this, just along the lines of what you were saying there. We're gonna call it props and drops. So we're gonna have our little weekly props for our favorite player, guy that we think did the best in between episodes, and our drops, the guy that really disappointed us. So one guy each. You started off. Who's your prop of the week?
My prop of the week is Semyon Varlamov. He comes in the first game of the year, shuts out the youthful team and the Rangers. And then the next game, he gets injured in warm up, takes a shot to the neck, goes down. I mean, did you see Barry Trotz absolutely roast his player for hitting him in the neck? It was pretty funny. And then he comes back next game and gets another shutout. I mean, 2 shutouts in 2 games, and he looked steady, looked fantastic. I know the Islanders are a good defensive team and they help out, but I thought he was awesome in the net, and I think he deserves my props for the week.
Absolutely. I'll hop in for my prop here. That's an easy pick. I mean, hard to beat 2 shutouts. No, not a shot. I'm gonna go with Jack Eichel for mine here. A lot of guys tied at the top with 6 points coming into the season. I thought it was very important that he have not only just a good start, but a good overall year. He's been, I think, right at the cusp. I think some people have said he's already at the top. Some people are saying he's not quite there. So I think he's right at the cusp of being one of your top 5 guys in the league, potentially. And I think this year is when he makes that jump. So play Washington twice to start the year, right off the hop, 23 minutes, has 6 points in 3 games on a team where they have no success if he doesn't score. So I'd put him. I'd like to see him continue this pace and put him way up at the top. I might be naming him a couple more times throughout the season, I think.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy, you're saying top 5 players in the league. I had to think about it for myself, but I think he's a definite top 5 center in the NHL. I think there's no question for that for me. I think he's fantastic. I think if you're talking about a guy who can drive the play, right? Like you said, he plays 23 minutes a night, and every time he's on the ice, he's able to drive the play. There's very few players in the NHL that can absolutely take over a game when they want to, and he's one of those guys. So yeah, we're going to be giving him props a lot this year, because he's a guy that if the Sabres are going to make any noise, it's going to be on his back. And I honestly don't believe in the Sabres, but I believe in Jack Eichel. So There you go.
Hand of God. Yep. And you got your drop of the week.
Yeah, my drop of the week is a tough one. So we just went on about Jack Hughes and how great he's been. We were like, don't harp on the young guys too fast. I'm a harp on a young guy. All right. I'm gonna go after a guy a bit. I'm gonna go after Alex Lafreniere. And the reason why I'm gonna go after him is not that he had no points in the 2 games, because lots of guys will start out their NHL career and not they're gonna take some time to adjust and everything. But I'm not talking about, just an average first round pick, or I'm not talking about, a guy like Jack Hughes who was a first overall pick, but we weren't quite sure on him because it was a weaker year, quote unquote. I'm talking a guy that got exceptional status who's supposed to come in and be a superstar. Like, people are picking him to be much over a point per game. They're saying he's going to be a fantastic player, like a generational kind of guy. And I watched him play. His feet weren't moving. He wasn't winning puck battles. Like, I don't care if you don't score in your first 2 games in the NHL. Like, lots of guys don't, but he just didn't even look ready to be there, or like he hasn't been skating or anything like that. I think obviously it's not a worry or whatever. It's 2 games, but he's a guy I expected to come in and just be like, okay, wow, he's on the ice. Like, we saw what he did at the World Juniors last year. It's like, oh my God, he's on the ice. It's a show to watch. And he wasn't like that at all. I don't know if it was from him being behind Panarin and Kreider in that lineup. I don't know, not having the right minutes, not having the right line mates, but I saw him out there a couple of times in the power play, and he just didn't look excited, or didn't have that jam in his step yet. So I'm going to give him for my pick for the week. But obviously, I'm not saying his whole career is going to go downhill because he had a bad first week in the NHL. I'm just saying that with a lot of hype, I expected more out of him.
I agree 100%. I like that. I like the pick a lot. Like you said, it's if you're a Rangers fan, you're not scared, you're not worried, you're not afraid, but you come with the hype and you expect a little bit more out of them. I like that pick. For my drop here, I'm going to stay with the Rangers, and I'm going to pick a guy by the name of Tony DeAngelo for this. We talked about him before, how him and Fox are going to go and just be like, they should be stars. Or he's laughing here because he knows where this is going, but they should be stars on this team. And you have a guy that has had attitude issues in the past and takes an unsportsmanlike penalty in game 1 in that 4-0 loss. And it's at the point there where Coach Quinn there just scratched him for the next game. So you're a guy that all the hype's on you. You're going to come in. You have a chance to be way up in the points and really try to carry your team to a playoffs with alongside with him and Fox. And right off the bat, you're a healthy scratch because of an attitude thing. I think that's unacceptable. It's a very, very bad look for them right now, especially in your first game that you get shut out. So he's my definite drop on this. It's more of an ego thing maybe for me, because I had him high up coming in, and that disappointed me big time.
See, I'm laughing because I can't disagree with you. He's a player that should never be a healthy scratch in your lineup, no matter what's going on. You're telling me that if you have Jack Johnson in your lineup, in your decor, and Anthony DeAngelo is getting healthy scratched, like, that's an issue. Like, there is no argument for me on that pick. It's blowing my mind still. I'm just trying to think about it, compute it in my head, like, what's happening there. Like, he's a fantastic player. I think everybody knows that. And for them to be successful in that contentious of division, he's going to have to play well, and he's going to have to be in the lineup. Like, it's blowing my mind a bit, but yeah, it's an obvious drop for the week. I mean, one of your best D isn't even in the lineup. I don't even know what to say about it.
Yeah, well, I was just looking over this, and all of the props and drops were in that East Division, right? With 1 Islander, 1 Sabre, and then 2 drops by the Rangers. So we'll have to keep tabs on that. Maybe watch a little more West Coast games and check those ones out. Stay up past our bedtimes.
I mean, I'm trying to think of guys in the other divisions that really like stood out, so I could try and pick some other ones. But yeah, it looks like I'm gonna have to, put the nightlight on and stay up a little bit later here.
Yeah, and let's turn that nightlight on. Maybe stay up for a couple West Coast games, those late games, and we'll spread out the props and drops a little bit. I think that's about all we have for this week. We'll hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll see you back here for episode 3.